Hi everybody, this is going to be a video talking about how to make bubble letters, our next step in our graffiti unit. So last time we talked about how to make block letters and we filled out this whole paper. I know mine's not filled out, but we filled out this whole page with different block letter experimentation, and then maybe you had some time to experiment on another page. But regardless, today we're going to be starting on a new page, and we are going to create the same exact 2-inch sections that we did for our block letters. So I'm measuring 2 inches, and then I'm making a mark, and then I'm making a straight line. And then I'm measuring 2 inches down, making a mark, taking my ruler, meeting with that mark, and making a straight line. Going down from that mark, making another 2-inch line, and then drawing that straight line across. They don't have to be exactly straight across the page. If they're a little crooked, you can see mine are a little bit crooked. That's totally fine. 2 inches down, and then we're drawing a line across, and you should end up with 4 sections and then a little bit of extra space underneath, and that's okay. So we are going to write out the same word that we did for the start of our block letters. We're going to start with art. So I'm going to write out A, R, T. And I like to think of bubble letters and block letters in this way. Block letters are all made out of rectangles, right? Well, unless it's curved like that, but they're all made out of these rectangles that are angled in whatever way they need to be in order to produce that letter, right? We're making rectangles around these lines, straight lines around these lines. So if block letters are rectangles, then bubble letters are made out of circles and ovals. So we're going to start with this A, and I'll tell you what I mean. And I'll use the same exact system of using different colored pens to explain to you how this works. So I'm going to start with this line of the A again, and I'm going to draw an oval around it. You can make this oval as bubbly or as non-bubbly as you would like. I'm going with kind of a middle ground. And then I'm going to draw an oval around this line. Okay. And then if you've been following along, you'll probably understand the system here. Now I'm going to draw an oval around this middle bar right here, this guy right here. Okay. So when I go in and I outline this with, I don't know, let's just use this brown, okay? If I were to outline this, and you wouldn't have to outline this if you were using pencil, but I'm using different colors. So I'm just gonna kind of show y'all what this looks like in the end. You can see this outline of a really bubbly A, all right? I'm gonna do it again over here. And we're going to talk about this R first. So when we get to a curve like this and we're working with bubble letters, I like to kind of make some points where this route is changing. So instead of making it all curved, because we can't really make an oval around a whole thing unless we went like all the way around, and that's not going to look right. So I like to make some extra points where I can tell that things are changing. So I like to make this point to this point right here. So the corner right here to this point right here. I like to make that a straight line. And then I'm going to make this point right here a straight line, from that point to that point, and from this point to this corner a straight line. And you'll see why I'm doing that in a second here. So I'm going to start again by making an oval around this straight line. And then I'm going to make an oval around this straight line. And I'm going to make an oval around this straight line. And then you guessed it, another oval around this straight line. It's okay if they overlap a little bit. And then one more oval. I'll do this pink around this straight line right here. And you'll notice, again, if I outline this, do I have a Sharpie sitting around? I don't. Okay, we're going to use this brown marker again. You'll notice when I outline this that because I broke this R's curve into some extra lines, we end up with this really cool center to our letter that looks more like a star than just kind of a normal center of an R. And I like that because it makes it look more bubbly. You don't have to do this, but this is how we're going to be practicing initially, just so we can really break things down and understand how we can make this shape, how we can challenge ourselves to go above and beyond here. We're going to go with the T here, and just like last time, I'm going to go in with my pencil and show y'all what this looks like without all of the crazy colors, and then we'll move on to JK again. So I'm going to start by making an oval around this top bar, and then an oval around this bottom bar, and then I'm going to erase all of this detail in the middle so that I'm just left with the outline. And that looks like a super bubbly T, right? And if I were to erase all this other jargon, we wouldn't get as crisp of an image of what's going on. But we can kind of start to see a little bit better how this whole system works, right? So there's art. Let's make JK, or maybe go in with your initials, or try to find a letter that has some sort of curve in it like this R, because we're going to keep on working with trying to make sure that we understand how this works here. So I'm going to draw a J, and I'm going to let it hover a little bit there, just so I've got a little bit more space to add my bubble. And we're working in the confines of these lines that we drew earlier, right? Okay, so here's my JK. The first thing that I'm going to do is solve the problem of this bend right here, okay? So again, I made 2 extra marks on my R here to make this really cool shape, right? So I'm gonna make a mark where it starts to change, and then I'm gonna make a mark where it changes again and goes up. And I think that's gonna be enough to really get across what I'm trying to do here. So I am going to, you can either erase the bend or you cannot, but I'm just going to erase that bend so I can make a straight line so my brain doesn't forget to do that when I go in and make my ovals, which we're gonna do now. So make an oval around that top bar, make an oval around this bar, and you want your ovals to overlap. Do you see how this oval that I just drew overlaps with this one, and that makes these really cool bubbly bends right here. So I'm going to make an oval around this bar, and then an oval around this bar, and then I'm going to go to my K. I'm going to make an oval around this one, and an oval around this bar, and an oval around this bar, and again everything's overlapping so we get that really bubbly feel. I'm going to outline this with a blue pen just because I can, just so I can show y'all what I'm talking about here. And we'll see how this looks. Might not be my best work, but that's okay. Just outlining the outside, and just like with the block letters, you can play around with how thick you want things, how thin you want your bubbles or your blocks to be. It all depends on artistic preference, and that's the beauty of art class. As long as you've got the skill down, there's no real wrong way to take that and go make your own thing, right? So there's my JK. I'm gonna be honest with you. I love the way that this part of my bubble looks. I love the way this part of my bubble looks. I'm not a huge fan of how this part of my bubble looks. I wish that I had drawn this part of my J with a little bit more of a bubble, but that's all right. We're practicing, right? So y'all are going to go through these 4 sections and you're going to make 4 different words practicing this bubble art. Again, breaking down our letters into straight lines, circling everything with an oval, coloring in the outside, outlining the outside, and then erasing those pencil lines. And then once you've got the hang of it, I can show y'all again kind of a sample of what this could look like. So let me draw out, I'm not as good with bubble letters as I am with my other block art, but I can still kind of sketch it out first. And something I love about this one is how everything starts to overlap, so you can really see boom, boom, and then maybe my O goes on top of my J here, and then I got boom, 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 boom. Let's make that a little smaller. And then I can go in and make my R, curve that, and then go boom, 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 and then curve my D, work, and then go bam, 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 and then maybe I have that I in front again just because I like the way that looks, and I can make a heart with bubbles too. That looks kind of like that, right? Then I can go in and outline everything, really show y'all what I'm talking about here. Maybe right here I add an extra star. Maybe right here I want a heart. Maybe I add a different type of star right here. It's fun to add those features before you go in and outline because then you're not drawing over the top of everything. Bam, bam. And you can kind of see how once you've practiced enough, you really get the hang of how everything works together. How everything, like these little kinks here, right? So there's my name, and maybe I add that same burst behind it. Bam, 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 bam. You can tell I love sound effects. So this is the route that you could take it. I could add color to this. I could add detail. I also have an example that I made for y'all that's a similar vibe of my last name. So we've got Jordy, and then Coolis is a little bit more polished here. I added some shading. I added some of those fun little sparkles and flowers, which I obviously like a lot. But I like playing around with how many ovals I'm adding, how that changes the shape of my letters. And now you get to play around with this and figure out your own personal preference. So thanks for watching.